grab your suspenders. Outnumbered over time. Oh, gee, baby. And you literally did.
Right. I thought you were talking to me.
Oh, yeah. The first time you and I were on air together was on the red carpet at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Extra TV.
Yeah, Extra TV.
You were gracious enough to come by and give me an
Well, you were very
interview.
sweet. You hit me with the political questions for journalism, and it was super fun to have an intelligent conversation. Yeah. And then you hit me with who made your dress, and I was all confused. That was okay. I was like, what dress? What? To this time where we are right now, are we on the brink of something great, or are we? Where are we? Where would you put us in politics right now?
I think that there's the potential to do very great things. That's why I was very supportive of President Trump. I thought that he spoke on issues that we normally don't talk about, talking about Chicago, which
you mean leading up to the election? Leading
up to the election, and then I'll come back to here. So leading up to the election, and even now, still talking about Chicago, which I appreciated the fact that he kept the heat up on Chicago, especially considering the fact that my family has been personally impacted by the violence. Memorial Day weekend, my little brother was in the car with two of his friends. Two guys walked up to the car and riddled it with 25 bullets. Thankfully, my brother lived, but his best friend died in his arms.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
This issue is very, very, very serious.
When did that happen?
Memorial Day weekend.
Kidding?
Wait, this past Memorial Day?
This past Memorial Day
I'm so
weekend.
sorry.
So when it comes to Chicago and President Trump mentioning Chicago and how bad it is, I'm lockstep with him on that. Yeah. That's a very important issue to me. And Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago, which I say black lives don't matter to Rahm Emanuel, black votes matter to Rahm Emanuel. He doesn't care about the city at all, in my view. This is something we got to keep the heat up on, and I'm thankful for President Trump's voice on that issue.
Can you rewind for a second, because you're bringing up these thoughts of President Obama and how he failed.
He failed Chicago
to do so much. I mean, they just named a Barack Obama Day in the city of Chicago. I think it's now a national day. Is it Illinois state a holiday? The streets are named. What there was such a missed opportunity there. Yeah,
very much so. And honestly speaking, he could have been very direct. He could have went to Chicago, but his chief of staff and his old pal, Rahm Emanuel, was in office, so he didn't want to highlight the violence and the crime.
Well, you and I are making eye contact. Yeah. I have tears in my eyes. You have tears in yours.
Yeah, no,
because
I think about President Trump when he was a candidate. He would go into he went to Detroit. Yeah. Even though that it wouldn't be the natural constituency for the Republican Party, he wants to talk about inner cities. He talks about economic opportunities for all Americans. And I think that's
but engaging the black community was important.
Was very important.
But that was why I found pastors and a wider net.
He talked about the issues that you don't hear Republicans or Democrats talk about in a very specific and direct way.
And that initial response to Charlottesville on that Saturday, and this was it all becomes personal, right, at some point. But growing up in the very rural South, and I was educated, this was as the public school system was really finally being integrated in rural America, starting in the 60s with the Civil Rights Act, but really moving into the 70s. I was educated by very strong black women who had taught in segregated schools. And we learned firsthand from these women of what it was like to live in the South when the Klan would show up at your house and pull your loved ones in the yard and lynch them and set crosses on fire, and having family members who fought for our freedom, whether it was in World War I or World War II. So when you see individuals screaming about Jews will not replace us, blood and soil, armed to the ears, carrying torches, like, there is a real, visceral, deeply emotional reaction to that.
Yes.
And to not have a president to come out and say, I condemn these individuals. They're Nazis. There's no place for this hate. There's no place for the hate that is left over from the Klan of the last century. That's all you need to say. And you know what? And I condemn all violence, whether it's in the name of anti-fascists, whether it's in the name of fascists and Nazis. It just should seem like an easy thing for somebody who's so good with words and so
you
passionate.
articulated it so well. And I think that was a part of my disappointment with the president, and that's why you saw such an emotional reaction from me last week. I couldn't sleep. I saw the speech, then I watched the speech, but I couldn't sleep. And I know that President Trump watches Fox and Friends. So this was my moment to talk directly to the president and let him know how I feel and how so many other people feel. This is too
sensitive. Did you hear from anybody with the administration?
Yeah, after that started going viral, I reached out immediately.
I hadn't seen reporting about that. I'm curious to know what you heard from the Trump administration.
Well,
can you share any?
No, I don't feel comfortable sharing that. But they had some.
I'm just curious. I thought they might reach out. So here's my question, because we can stay stuck, but this is not 1950.
Yeah.
And we have to go forward. Mm-hmm. You know, we're raising children. My kids are asking about this now because we have been kind of stuck on the same spot for a couple of weeks now. How do we go forward? The president has said certain words, called out certain groups. Maybe last night, as you're saying, was yes or no on whether or not it was right to bring it up again. That rally was all about him.
Right.
And we've seen him do this before. But how do we go forward? Because we have to, Gianna, we have to move forward.
I think that oftentimes we're just talking past each other. We're not uniting enough. We're not having this conversation right here.
We need to put America in a semicircle.
Let's put them right here in front of the camera. We're not often having this conversation.
Haven't you had those personal conversations, though? Haven't we all had them repeatedly over the last
Absolutely, but not at the White House. So
I
then
do
here's
have to say,
question.
though, Secretary Mnuchin did come out with a letter. Remember, there was his Yale.
Too bad his wife went down that road and that kind of got.
But basically saying you need to leave the administration. How can you work for this president? And Mnuchin, who knows the president well, said the president is not a racist. Like, he laid out the facts about the president. And so I think for the president, there's still an opportunity to be able to talk about these issues that are sensitive, that are complicated, that need solutions. And I think he definitely does have the capacity and the leadership to do this.
Do you think he will?
I believe he will. I do.
I want to read this from the live chat. Shroud of Kevin. I don't think that's this person's real name, but I like the art. Our picture's interesting. Quote, whether we are black or brown or white, we all bleed the same red blood of patriots. We all enjoy the same glorious freedoms, end quote. President Trump's inaugural address, and the message has not changed since then. You know, it's interesting. He chose to quote his words from 2 weeks ago in Charlottesville. But the point of this person is he had other words that he's spoken that he could have quoted. You know, you would know better than probably anybody on the couch. What's the message writing, the speech writing for this president right now? Do you?
Well, I think that he has talked about all Americans, whether you're black, brown. He always talks about this idea of all of us coming together. So I do believe that for the president, you know, it's a moment to have more of this discussion just besides giving the speech in terms of action. So I don't know. I feel like he has talked about the racism and the bigotry and the violence, but the media really has attacked the president by saying this is just not enough and he has to go, you know, even more forward on this. And then it became into this fight with the media. So I do believe that there is a sense that the president feels very frustrated with how he has been covered on this.
Right, because he doesn't want anyone to view him as a racist, which I understand, I get. But we keep in mind that he made it the issue. We could have, you know, he made his statement and he went before the cameras. And when this happened on Saturday, I watched the press, the protest, all that stuff. And on Monday, I reached out to the White House early morning, and I said, President Trump needs to get in front of the cameras and he needs to have a very direct and candid conversation on this.
And how does that go? Hi, this is JC. Or GC, Gianna Caldwell. And they're in a room. And
JC, your heart and your mind are in the right place.
GC is on the line. Gianna
right,
Caldwell's
Mr. President, answer the phone. No, we have these conversations. I talk to the White House on a very regular basis. When what happened to my little brother occurred, I set up a meeting and went and met with them the next week. And I said, President Trump needs to send the feds. He needs to keep his commitment to the people of Chicago and send the feds. And 2 weeks later, there were some federal agents that were
all the anger in this country. Why why can it not be channeled there? I don't understand.
You mean 15, 20 people dying every weekend in Chicago?
I don't understand why it's not the front page of every
50, 60 people being shot every weekend.
The level of rage is at the same height on the right and the left. I get called a and all sorts of expletives every single day by both liberals and conservatives, like far right, far left. So I feel like that there has to be people. in the middle somewhere in this country.
As we wrap out the show, Captain Shadro, a nation that erases its past will no longer have a future. Outnumbered once again proves differing opinions can be discussed civilly and respectfully. And to end it out, our attention says good show today. Giano did good.
Yay. That's a great place to end. Thank you for all of your viewership and your love out there. Giano, great to see you.
Thank you.
We'll see you tomorrow.